So if you look at where Cox started out and where they got to, if you had to kind of define why the business was better off where it ended up as to where it started with this and what the kind of key wins were, are there any particular metrics that you would put around that, or how would you kind of describe those key wins as the business capability when it was mature when you moved on, compared to kind of before they actually ran that program?
Yeah, so visibility into spend is a massive win. Uh, One of the big issues that they had were accruals, right? You've got a lot of business running through Oracle that wasn't being tracked accurately, right? Or businesses weren't uploading their invoices. So at year end, you'd have a massive rush of hundreds of millions of dollars potentially that all of a sudden came in, and the business is like, well, where did all of this come from? We weren't planning for this. Um, so one, just from a financial aspect, one of our biggest wins was getting finance support, right? Saying, oh, well, we actually have full visibility. We try to drive things from Oracle as their system out of Oracle into the vendor management system because we know the controls are in place and they're being monitored, they're being reported on. Whereas if it's through Oracle, they had to try to do it, and they didn't have the bandwidth to do it, and they didn't have the controls in place to really say, our managers are approving it in a timely manner, that all the POs are put in, like if it was signed, if an agreement was signed, and then it was on the manager to put it in, you know, they it was a hope, a wish, and a prayer, right? Because it wasn't automatically done. Whereas if that spend's already going through the VMS, as soon as it was signed by procurement, immediately gets entered into the VMS, right? Versus if it was being managed through Oracle via PO. And I imagine that's probably very similar in a lot of organizations, right? Where you've got Coupa or Ariba, and it's really just you've got the buy side, and you don't really have anything beyond that in the tracking of the resources or anything else. So, I would say that visibility into your spend is huge. It gives you the granularity of the reporting that you're able to give to your business at year end. Um, Not necessarily year end, probably September when they start their planning cycle for the budget for the next year, because they use all of that information as part of what should our budget be, right? So it was always an easier conversation when for the business, when they're like, oh, I've got access to this data, I already have it, I don't have to try to pull it, and I can already tell you, these are the projects that we've got that are open, that are still going to be coming through next year, so we could plan from an accrual purpose. Versus the business units that did not, they didn't have that as good control on their budgets. So that's an easy win there, that I would say is a good indicator of a healthy, mature program, is being able to just do planning and budgeting accurately. Um, and honestly, you look at KPIs, cost savings always are huge, right? If you're sitting in procurement or finance, so there were always targets. I mean, that's always going to be one of the biggest targets for most procurement organizations. Is they're given their savings target that they have to negotiate every year. So that visibility and that tracking and that category management that you're able to do when you have that visibility into the spend, just enables your procurement function and finance function infinitely better than you would otherwise, right? Because if you're pulling data from Oracle, you don't have that granular level data to really say, all right, well, I can't tell you what the hourly rates are for these folks, so I don't know if what we're paying for these resources um, is even adequate, right? Or if we're managing to our rate cards, so they just don't have that level of information.
Yeah, and it always makes me think, if you don't have this information, if you aren't managing things in an organized way, how can you be strategic?